The desperate search alien settlement stretched endlessly under 3 purple moons, its twisted metal structures rising like broken bones against the starlit sky. Zara pressed her thin fingers against the cold walls of abandoned buildings, searching every crack and crevice for anything edible. Her stomach had stopped growling days ago, but the hollow ache remained, a constant reminder of her family's desperate situation. Beside her, young Kryn stumbled on weak legs, his large amber eyes reflecting the distant glow of the settlement's few remaining lights. The boy had inherited his mother's delicate features, but lacked her stubborn strength. Each step seemed to drain what little energy he had left, yet he never complained. Zara's heart broke watching him struggle, knowing she had failed to provide the most basic need a mother should fulfill. Their shelter lay hidden, in the ruins of what had once been a thriving district. Now, it was nothing more than twisted metal sheets leaning against a crumbling wall, barely enough to block the bitter wind that swept across the wasteland. Inside, a tattered blanket served as their only comfort, worn thin from countless cold nights. Zara had tried everything to find work, but the settlement's strict caste system kept her family trapped in poverty. Without proper documentation or connections, she was denied even the most menial jobs. The local authorities viewed her kind as less than citizens, barely worthy of the scraps they sometimes threw to the desperate. Tonight felt different somehow, as if the universe itself held its breath. Zara sensed something approaching, though she couldn't name what. The air hummed with an unusual energy that made her skin tingle with anticipation. High above the settlement, Captain Marcus Kane fought desperately to control his damaged vessel. The small exploration ship had taken heavy fire during a skirmish with raiders, and now its engines sputtered and died. Alarms blared in the cramped cockpit as he struggled with the controls. Knowing a crash was inevitable, Marcus had spent years exploring the outer reaches of known space, documenting new worlds and establishing contact with alien species. His weathered face bore the scars of countless adventures, but his eyes still held the wonder of a man who found beauty in the unknown. Despite the danger of his situation, part of him felt excited to discover what lay on this uncharted world. The ship struck the ground with tremendous force, sending shockwaves through the settlement. Metal groaned and sparked as the vessel skidded to a halt just beyond Zara's makeshift home. She instinctively pulled Kryn closer, shielding him from the debris that rained down around them. When the dust settled, Marcus emerged from the wreckage, his uniform torn and his dark hair disheveled. He carried a survival pack containing emergency rations, medical supplies, and communication equipment. Blood trickled from a cut on his forehead, but he seemed otherwise unharmed. Zara watched from the shadows as this strange being examined his destroyed ship. She had heard stories of humans before, tales of their unpredictable nature and fierce independence. Yet something about this particular human seemed different. He moved with purpose, but without aggression, his manner suggesting intelligence rather than brutality. Kryn tugged at his mother's sleeve, pointing at the human with curious eyes. The boy had never seen one of the legendary star travelers before, and despite his weakness, wonder sparked in his gaze. Zara hushed him gently, uncertain whether this newcomer represented salvation or further danger for her already desperate family. Forbidden Kinless Marcus surveyed the crash site with practiced efficiency, cataloging what could be salvaged from his vessel. The communication array was beyond repair, and the engines would need parts he couldn't possibly obtain on this remote world. He was stranded, at least until a rescue ship could locate his emergency beacon as he worked. Movement in the shadows caught his attention. A figure crouched near a pile of debris, moving with the careful desperation of someone accustomed to hiding. Marcus approached slowly, his hands visible to show he meant no harm. What he discovered made his heart clench with unexpected emotion. The alien woman was clearly malnourished. Her pale blue skin stretched tight over delicate bones. Her clothing, once perhaps beautiful, now hung in tatters that barely provided modesty. But it was the child beside her that truly affected Marcus. The small boy swayed on his feet, his eyes unfocused with hunger, and Marcus recognized the signs of severe malnutrition from his travels to war-torn worlds. Zara tensed as the human approached. every instinct screaming at her to flee. Yet Kryn could barely walk, and she knew they wouldn't make it far. She wrapped her arms protectively around her son, preparing to beg for mercy if necessary. The human's strange blue eyes seemed to take in their situation with startling clarity, without speaking. Marcus reached into his survival pack and withdrew a package of emergency rations. The concentrated food bars were designed to provide maximum nutrition in minimal space, intended to sustain him during his wait for rescue. He held the package toward Zara, his expression gentle but serious. Zara stared at the offering in disbelief. In her world, nothing came without a price, especially from strangers. She searched the human's face for signs of deception or ulterior motives, but found only genuine concern, slowly, trembling. She reached for the food, while keeping Kryn safely behind her. "For him," Marcus said softly, gesturing toward the boy. His voice was deeper than she had expected, with a warmth that seemed to vibrate through her chest. "He needs it more than I do." The first bite of real food in days brought tears to Kryn's eyes. He ate slowly, savoring each morsel while his mother watched with a mixture of gratitude and terror. This act of kindness violated so many of the settlement's unwritten rules that Zara couldn't comprehend why the human would risk it. Marcus knelt beside them, offering water from his canteen. "What are your names?" he asked, his tone carefully neutral. Zara hesitated before answering, her voice barely above a whisper as she gave their names. The human repeated them with careful pronunciation, as if committing them to memory. "I'm Marcus," he replied, touching his chest lightly. "I won't hurt you." The sound of heavy boots echoed through the ruins, growing closer with each passing moment. Zara's eyes widened with panic as she recognized the approaching patrol. Guards Vex and Tormund were known throughout the settlement for their cruelty toward the lower castes, and finding her with an unauthorized human would mean severe punishment. Marcus sensed the change in atmosphere immediately. Rising to his feet with fluid grace, his hand moved instinctively toward the weapon at his side, though he didn't draw it. Years of diplomatic training had taught him to read situations quickly, and he understood that violence would only make things worse for the woman and child. Vex appeared first, his massive frame filling the narrow passage between debris piles. His scaled hide bore ritual scars that marked him as a warrior caste, and his small eyes gleamed with malicious intelligence. Tormund followed close behind, smaller but no less dangerous, his movements quick and predatory. "Well, what have we here?" Vex rumbled, his voice like grinding stone. "A little rat sharing food with an alien? How touching." Zara pulled Kryn closer, her whole body shaking with fear. She had dealt with these guards before and knew their capacity for casual cruelty. Tormund's grin revealed rows of sharp teeth as he examined Marcus with obvious hostility. "Humans aren't welcome in this sector," Tormund hissed. "Especially not ones who feed vermin." Marcus stepped forward slightly, positioning himself between the guards and the frightened family. His posture remained relaxed but alert, every line of his body communicating calm strength. He had faced hostile aliens before, and knew that showing fear would only encourage their aggression. "The child was starving," Marcus said simply. "I had food to spare." Vex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the metal walls. "How noble. How stupid." He raised his weapon, a crude but effective energy club that sparked with contained power. "Perhaps we should teach you how things work here, human." The confrontation with the guards ended without violence, though the tension lingered like smoke in the air. Marcus had stood his ground with quiet dignity, neither backing down nor escalating the situation. His calm strength had apparently impressed even Vex, who eventually decided the human wasn't worth the paperwork that would follow a formal incident. After the guards left, Zara found herself studying this strange man who had risked his safety for her family. Marcus continued sharing his rations over the following days, never asking for anything in return. He treated Kryn with gentle patience, teaching the boy simple words in the human language, while helping him regain his strength. "Why do you do this?" Zara asked one evening as they sat beneath the alien stars. Kryn had fallen asleep between them, his small body finally showing signs of recovery. The settlement around them had grown quiet. With only the distant hum of machinery breaking the silence, Marcus considered the question carefully, his eyes fixed on the unfamiliar constellations above. "I had a sister once," he said finally. "She died young, during a famine, on my home colony. I couldn't save her then." He looked at Crin's peaceful face. "Maybe helping him helps me find some peace with that." Zara felt something shift inside her chest at his words. She had expected him to say it was his duty, or that he hoped for some reward. Instead, he revealed a wound that still bled after all these years. The vulnerability in his admission touched her in ways she hadn't thought possible. As days passed into weeks, their conversations grew longer and more intimate. Marcus shared stories of the worlds he had explored, painting pictures with words of vast oceans under binary suns and cities that floated among the clouds. Zara told him of her people's ancient history, of the time before the settlement when they had been free to roam the stars themselves. "Your people were explorers too?" Marcus asked with genuine interest. They were walking through the ruins together, Crin running ahead with renewed energy. The boy had taken to collecting interesting pieces of debris, creating elaborate sculptures that delighted his mother. "Long ago," Zara nodded, her voice touched with sadness. "Before the wars, before the castes, before we forgot how to dream." She gestured toward the broken spires that surrounded them. "This was once beautiful, Marcus. We built wonders here." He could see it in her eyes, the ghostly image of what this place had once been. Her people had fallen far from their former glory, but the spark of their heritage still lived in individuals like her. Marcus found himself drawn not just to her beauty, which was considerable despite her hardships, but to the strength that kept her fighting for her child's future. Zara's closest friend watched these developing interactions with growing concern. The healer had survived by being cautious, by never attracting unwanted attention from the authorities. She pulled Zara aside after observing one of her conversations with Marcus. "You're walking a dangerous path," Naya warned, her silver hair catching the light from a nearby power cell. "The guards already suspect something. If they think you're getting too close to the human, ... He saved Crin's life," Zara replied firmly. "He asks for nothing, expects nothing. How can that be wrong?" Naya's expression softened, but her concern remained. "Because love makes us do foolish things, old friend. And I can see it in your eyes already." She touched Zara's shoulder, gently. "Be careful. Some risks are too great, even for love." That night, as Marcus repaired a section of their shelter, Zara found herself watching the way his hands moved with practiced skill. He had fashioned tools from salvaged materials, improving their living conditions without being asked. His presence had brought not just food and safety, but hope itself back into her world. Kayarin had grown attached to the human as well, following him around like a devoted shadow. Marcus taught the boy to identify edible plants that grew in the ruins, knowledge that could prove invaluable if he ever left. But Zara noticed he never spoke of leaving anymore. Never mentioned the rescue ship that might eventually come. "Do you miss your own world?" she asked as they shared the evening meal. The food was simple but nourishing, supplemented by plants Marcus had found during his explorations of the settlement. Sometimes he admitted and looked directly into her eyes. "But I'm finding reasons to stay." The weight of his gaze sent warmth spreading through her chest, a feeling she had thought lost forever. Zara had been alone for so long, focused entirely on survival. She had forgotten what it felt like to be seen as more than just another desperate refugee. Marcus looked at her as if she were precious, as if her thoughts and dreams mattered. Under the light of 3 moons, Marcus and Zara found themselves drawn together by forces neither fully understood. What had begun as compassion had slowly transformed into something deeper, more dangerous. They spent their evenings walking through the quieter sections of the ruins, talking in hushed voices while Crin slept peacefully in their improved shelter. "Tell me about the stars from your world," Zara whispered as they sat on a high pile of debris that offered a view of the night sky. Marcus had fashioned a crude telescope from salvaged materials, and together they explored the constellations that hung like jewels in the darkness above. "They're different colors there," Marcus replied, adjusting the telescope's focus. Our sun is yellow, not orange like yours, and we have only one moon. Though it's larger than any of these." He paused, then added softly, "But the stars are just as beautiful when shared with someone special." Zara's breath caught at his words, her heart beating faster than it had in years. She turned to look at his profile, illuminated by the alien moonlight, and saw something in his expression that made her pulse race. Slowly, tentatively, she reached for his hand. Marcus intertwined their fingers, marveling at how perfectly they fit together despite their different origins. Her skin was cooler than his, with a texture like fine silk, and he could feel the slight tremor that ran through her at his touch. The moment stretched between them, filled with possibility and danger in equal measure. "This is madness," Zara breathed, but she made no move to pull away. "If they discover us, ... then we'll face it together," Marcus replied, turning to meet her eyes. The intensity of his gaze made her feel as if she were falling through space, tumbling through starlight toward an unknown destination. Their first kiss was tentative, almost frightened, as if they both knew they were crossing a line from which there could be no return. But when their lips met, the universe seemed to contract around them, reducing existence to just this moment, this connection that transcended species and circumstance. Marcus pulled her closer, his hands tangling in her long dark hair while she pressed against him with desperate need. They had both been alone for too long, carrying burdens that seemed too heavy to bear. In each other's arms, those weights seemed to lift, replaced by a warmth that spread through their bodies like liquid starlight. "I never thought I could feel this way again," Zara whispered against his neck, her voice breaking with emotion. "After Kryn's father left, after everything we've endured, I thought my heart was dead." "It's not dead," Marcus murmured, pressing gentle kisses along her jaw. "It's just been waiting for the right moment to live again." They spent long hours together over the following nights, exploring not just physical intimacy, but emotional connection. Marcus shared stories of his lonely travels, of the emptiness that had driven him to seek new worlds among the stars. Zara spoke of her dreams for Kryn's future, of her hope that someday he might see the wonders she remembered from her. People's golden age, their relationship didn't go unnoticed. Whispers began to circulate through the settlement, carried by those who had observed the human's extended stay and his obvious attachment to the refugee family. Most of the gossip was merely curious, but some voices carried darker implications, Commander. Dex had built his reputation on maintaining order through fear and strict adherence to the settlement's hierarchical system. The grizzled military leader viewed any deviation from established norms as a potential threat to his authority. When reports of the human's involvement with a lower caste family reached his attention, his scarred face twisted with disapproval. "Bring me everything you know about this situation," Dex ordered his aide. A nervous creature who scuttled around the command center on too many legs, a human consorting with refugees violates several regulations. This ends now. Meanwhile, Marcus and Zara continued to find moments of happiness despite the growing danger. He taught Kryn to fashion simple tools and weapons for protection, knowledge the boy absorbed eagerly. During quiet evenings, Marcus would sing songs from his homeworld, his deep voice carrying melodies that seemed to soothe something ancient in Zara's soul. "If we could go anywhere," Zara asked one night as they lay together beneath the stars, "where would you take us?" Marcus considered the question seriously, his arm tightening around her shoulders. "There's a world I discovered a few years ago," he said finally. 3 days' journey from here by ship. It has purple oceans and floating islands covered in forests. The natives are peaceful traders, welcoming to refugees." He paused, then added quietly, "We could build a life there, the three of us." The dream was beautiful and terrible at once, because Zara could see it so clearly in her mind. She imagined Kryn running through alien forests, growing strong and free from the prejudices that had defined his early life. She pictured herself and Marcus exploring new wonders together, their love deepening with each shared adventure. But dreams, she had learned, were dangerous things in a place like this. The sound of marching feet shattered their peaceful moment. Commander Dex approached with a full squad of armed soldiers, their weapons gleaming in the moonlight. Marcus immediately positioned himself between the threat and Zara, his body tense with readiness for violence. Human designated Marcus Kane, Dex announced officially, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. You are under arrest for violation of species interaction protocols and corruption of settlement citizens. The detention chamber was a cramped metal box, barely large enough for Marcus to stand upright. They had separated him from Zara and Kryn 3 days ago, and the isolation gnawed him worse than any physical torture could have. Through the small window in his cell door, he could see other prisoners being led to various fates, but none returned to share their stories. Commander Dex had made the charges clear during his initial interrogation. Fraternization with lower caste aliens, distribution of resources without authorization, and most seriously, corrupting the social order that kept the settlement functioning. Each crime carried severe penalties, up to and including execution. You could have simply repaired your ship and left. Dex had sneered during one of their sessions. Instead, you chose to interfere with our way of life. Now, you'll face the consequences. Marcus had refused to show remorse or beg for mercy. His only concern was for Zara and Kryn's safety, though Dex had refused to tell him what had happened to them. The uncertainty was agonizing. Worse than any physical pain he had endured during his years of exploration, outside the prison complex, Zara fought desperately to secure Marcus's release. She had sold the few possessions she still owned, trading them for information about the legal system that held the man she loved. Naya helped where she could, but even the healer's connections had limits when dealing with military justice. There has to be something, Zara pleaded with a corrupt official who claimed he could arrange a meeting with Commander Dex. Some price, some compromise. The official, bloated creature whose species she didn't recognize, leered at her with obvious interest. There are always arrangements that can be made, he suggested, with a meaningful glance. Though the cost might be higher than you're prepared to pay. Zara's stomach turned at the implication. But she forced herself to consider it. If selling herself could save Marcus, could give Kryn a chance at the future they had dreamed of, perhaps it would be worth any personal degradation. But before she could respond, Kryn tugged at her sleeve. "Mama, no," the boy whispered with wisdom beyond his years. Marcus wouldn't want you to hurt yourself for him. The simple truth of her son's words cut through Zara's desperation. Marcus had shown them both what love really meant, and it wasn't about sacrifice through degradation. It was about choosing to stand together against whatever darkness threatened them. Word of the humans' imprisonment had spread throughout the settlement, sparking unexpected reactions among the population. Many of the lower caste families remembered his kindness, how he had shared food and medicine without asking for anything in return. Even some mid-level citizens had been impressed by his dignity during the arrest. Whispers of dissent began to circulate in the market squares and work areas. For the first time in years, people questioned whether the rigid caste system truly served everyone's interests. The sight of a man being punished for showing compassion touched something that the authorities thought they had successfully suppressed. On the day of Marcus's scheduled execution, Zara made a decision that would change everything. She gathered Kryn in her arms and walked directly to the public square where a crowd had assembled. The execution was meant to be a demonstration of power, a reminder of what happened to those who challenged the established order. "Listen to me," Zara called out, her voice carrying farther than she had thought possible. The crowd turned, surprised to see a lower caste woman speaking publicly. "This human gave food to my starving child when no one else would help. He asked for nothing in return. He harmed no one." Murmurs rippled through the assembly as people recognized her story. Many had heard whispers of the human's kindness, but few had seen Zara herself. Her obvious love for Marcus, combined with her desperate courage, created a powerful image that resonated with the crowd. Commander Dex tried to restore order, but other voices began to join Zara's. A merchant spoke of how Marcus had helped repair his stall after a storm. A healer mentioned the medical supplies the human had shared freely. Each testimony built upon the last, painting a picture of a man whose only crime had been excessive compassion. "He showed us what we used to be," called out an elderly voice from the back of the crowd. Before we forgot how to care for each other, the crowd's mood shifted palpably. Dex realized he was losing control of the situation. The execution of a popular figure could spark unrest that might threaten his authority, but backing down now would appear weak, potentially encouraging future challenges to the system in his cell. Marcus heard the commotion outside and recognized Zara's voice among the others. His heart swelled with pride and terror in equal measure. She was risking everything to save him. But her courage might only result in her own punishment. The standoff continued for hours, with neither side willing to yield completely. Finally, a compromise emerged from the chaos. Marcus would be exiled from the settlement rather than executed, but he would leave immediately and never return. Zara and Kryn would be permitted to accompany him if they chose, but they would forfeit any claim to citizenship or support as Marcus emerged from the prison. Weak but unbroken, Zara ran into his arms with tears streaming down her face. Kryn clung to both of them, his young mind struggling to understand the complex emotions swirling around him. They had perhaps an hour to gather their few possessions before departing forever. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked as they prepared to leave the only home Zara and Kryn had ever known. "Once we go, there's no coming back." Zara looked around at the broken settlement, then at the faces of the people who had spoken for them. "This isn't home anymore," she said firmly. "Home is wherever we're together." As their small ship lifted off toward the distant stars, carrying them toward the world Marcus had described with purple oceans and floating forests, Zara realized that love had indeed conquered the barriers between them. Not through grand gestures or dramatic sacrifices, but through the simple choice to see each other as worthy of care and respect. Behind them, the settlement continued its slow transformation. The seeds of change that Marcus and Zara's love had planted would grow in their absence, eventually blossoming into a more compassionate society. But that was a story for another day. For now, they flew toward tomorrow together, a family forged not by blood or species, but by the unbreakable bonds of love that transcended every boundary the universe could create.